Welcome to the Reindl Report, a podcast out of San Diego, California that rewrites the definition of mediocrity.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Oh, now I'm insulted.
So join along for the ride as Paul Reindl takes you through the world of sports with insight, interviews, and incredibly bad jokes.
It just seems like the people that are so butthurt about it.
Did you throw a butthurt out there?
Yeah, I said butthurt.
2005 calls. They want their turn back.
Yeah, walked right into that one.
Now, here's your host, Paul Reindl.
Well, hey there. Welcome to another edition of the Reindl Report. I am Paul Reindl, and I don't really know how that worked out with me getting to use my own intro. I guess it's like the home field advantage today since we're recording on my turf. But this is actually a joint podcast. I am joined by a couple of friends of mine. I'm not going to introduce them. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. But we're going to be talking NFL. We're going to be talking a lot of Chargers. I'm really excited about this one. So, guys, who do we have on the air with me tonight?
How's it going? My name's Curtis Geffram.
Hey, and it's Kendrick Lukenbach, the voices of Bolt Banter.
Bolt Banter.
Bolt Banter. And how can people follow you on Twitter?
All right, so we're all over Twitter. Mainly we focus on YouTube, but you can find us on Twitter. Our podcasts are available on SoundCloud and iTunes as well. So definitely check us out.
At Bolt Banter on Twitter. Mm-hmm. You can also find us on Facebook with our 67 likes.
True. Hey,
we're
67
growing.
likes.
Yeah, we're growing.
That's like 65 more than I got. And it's just me and my dad. Well, awesome. So I'm really excited about this. I definitely don't want to make it look like I'm interviewing you or anything like that. Like, this is totally a joint podcast, so please.
Crosstalk with the Reindl Report and Bolt Banter.
Exactly. I think we both got different audiences, and this is going to be awesome. It'll be fun to kind of dive into the draft. I want to talk about some of the surprises in the actual, the rest of the NFL draft, mostly first round, maybe a little bit of second round. And then we'll kind of dive into the Chargers. I think you guys probably know a lot more about the Chargers picks than I do. I mean, after 1 and 2, I mean, I just, I'm like,
boy, those sleepers around 7, man. Let me tell you.
I mean, look, they're not exactly. So I'm looking forward to that. So I think we got the intros out of the way, right? I mean,
absolutely.
Bolt Banter, the Reindl Report. This is gonna be a lot of fun. Something that my listeners are just starting to get used to is seeing my ugly mug. So I'm doing a couple of video podcasts. You guys mostly do video podcasts, correct?
Right.
You mentioned SoundCloud, but a lot of your viewership is through YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
Big one on YouTube.
It's definitely YouTube and then SoundCloud and iTunes as a secondary.
It's been cool to see it grow, too, as the season's approached and the draft has come up. We've just seen a lot of more interested viewership, which has been super cool.
Just out of curiosity, how long have you guys been doing this? There's my interviewing. There it goes.
So,
right? That I said I wouldn't do.
Back in the day, I want to say 2012, I started doing it just for fun, just to talk Chargers.
Right.
Because I love my Bolts. And then did some Bolt Banter in a radio version for SESU's radio. And
KCR
then,
College Radio.
Yeah, KCR. And then we just brought it back this past season, the 4-12 season, rest in peace. Kendrick and I started doing live broadcasting from YouTube, and we're here now, hoping for a better season.
I've always told Curtis it's one of those things where the technology wasn't there in 2012.
Right.
And we really needed it to be.
Yeah.
So last year,
a lot's happened.
When Google kind of managed their whole thing and changed YouTube accounts to merge with Google, I was like, hey, Hangouts is super easy to get on YouTube now. So let's get Bolt Banter doing this. And it's so easy for us because we can just, hop on YouTube, give it like 15 minutes and just talk about the Bolts and then go back about our business. And it's so cool because, we can use our phones now. Our phones weren't like this 5 years ago.
Right.
It's true.
Well, I mean, one of the few video podcasts that I've done, I did Facebook Live. So kind of secluded like my audience. I ended up taking that video, putting it up on YouTube, attaching like my quality audio, the good quality audio with that.
Right.
But just for the actual live podcast, I mean, I had like 60-something people just at the time watching it, and it was pretty awesome to kind of follow along. I can chat with you and do all that stuff, and then I think it ended up getting like a couple hundred views. Because it just saves it right to your Facebook wall. So it was kind of limited in the sense that you had to be my Facebook friend to see it. But for all those, couple of people that are unlucky enough to be Facebook friends with me. At least they got to see that live. So it's really
true.
cool. I mean, technology is definitely evolving. I'm glad you threw out the KCR reference.
Yeah.
That was
yeah.
where the Reindl report actually originated from.
There we go.
That was where it started.
It all comes back.
It
all
all
comes
comes
back.
full circle. So yeah, it was fun to hear that. All right. So let's just dive into the draft. Typically, the Reindl Report, I like to touch up on a lot of other sports. If you guys feel so inclined, we could talk about the Padres, but we don't. We definitely do not have to go in there. That is a sad story for another day. But
The whole NL West right now, though,
It's
so
terrible.
It's open for everyone in
Yeah.
that
I mean,
division. That's what's
it's
crazy.
open.
right,
About it. Like,
I predicted the Padres to have a pretty lousy season, and I
Yeah.
don't think that's wrong. I mean, it's just like
and the
it's
craziest
just
part is
where they're
lousy.
at.
Lousy is third place right
Right.
now.
Lousy-
The Diamondbacks made so many moves, and the
Right.
Rockies have story. Like
Right.
the Padres could easily be in third place
Exactly.
with like 40 wins.
The fact that Dodgers and Giants are hitting a slump at the same time with everyone is pretty amusing to me too.
Right,
Everyone's in sync.
It's a long season. It's
Yeah.
going to even out. Padres are going
They
to be
will.
right where everyone thought they would be, but we'll see how it goes. So let's just focus on the draft. For anybody listening at home, in your car, on YouTube, on SoundCloud,
Right
on
in your
iTunes,
earphones.
right into your phone, earbuds right into your ears. However you're listening, there goes our sign.
Oh, hopefully that's not a-
Save our bolts.
So that'll be on the video.
Foreshadowing.
We had a Chargers sign that did not make it. Let's see, we are 6.5 minutes in. So, however you guys may be listening, where I was going with that, thank you first of all. And this is being recorded on Monday, May 2nd, I believe. Yes. Monday, May 2nd. So that's your context. The draft was just a few days ago. The final round ending on Saturday, 2 days ago. So that's kind of, I like to give a timestamp for these, pre-recorded
Yeah, definitely.
episodes. so
When
that
our
people-
kids come back to it, they'll
Right,
know who
exactly.
Laramie Tunzel was.
Exactly. Like, when Jim Rome finally retires and he's like, okay, this Paul Reindl kid, like, I want to give him a shot. He can go back to the ReindlReport.blogspot.com and he'll know exactly what we're talking about. So that's why I do it. All right, NFL draft. I just want to start, 1 and 2. Wentz, Goff. Everybody knew that, and this is really relevant to Chargers fans especially. Everybody knew that they were going to be 1 and 2. You didn't know which order, but it was pretty universally accepted that they were going to go 1 and 2, and then the draft would begin. Chargers basically getting the number 1 pick. We'll get into that in a little bit, but I mean, anything stand out to you about those guys? Like, it's just okay. Look, I know last year we had Mariota and Winston, top 2. It's still, and I could be completely pulling this out of my ass, that it's still fairly rare to have top 2 picks being both quarterbacks. And I mean, these guys, they don't seem like an Andrew Luck, like a can't miss. And Andrew Luck, I still think the book is out on him. We'll have to wait and see. He's a good quarterback. They were saying the next Montana, when he was coming into the draft. Haven't seen that yet. The jury's still out. We'll see. I don't really see that with either of these guys. I think they could be quality quarterbacks, but for anybody that's not aware, it was Jared Goff to the Rams, the Los Angeles Rams, who I finally got that right. I keep saying the St. Louis Rams still, and then Carson Wentz going number 2, so to Philadelphia. So I mean, anything stand out to you guys about them?
Like you were saying, we both know that they were going to go 1 and 2. And kind of to add on that a little bit, that the development of Eagles and Rams 1 and 2 happened kind of just recently up until, a couple weeks prior. And what I like to say about it is I agree with what you're saying, where to me nothing stands out when I watch tape from them or hear, specific analysts really dive deep in who they are and how they break down. I think Goff is a very short-term resolution for a team that needs a quarterback in LA. A brand new team, brand new market. And Wentz could be a guy that you see stick around for a while. They're saying he has better fundamentals and he has maybe the chemistry to really develop him for a franchise. So those are my thoughts on both those quarterbacks.
Yeah, my thought on both of them is that with the Rams moving into LA right before they hit the stadium and being in the Coliseum, borrowing that from USC, that Goff's kind of going to be a new face for the franchise, kind of this young, youthful Rams. I mean, all he's got to do is hand it off to Todd Gurley. You don't really have a lot of receivers around Goff, so you're not expecting him to do much. And the Rams have really good defense. So I think the thing that it kind of reminds me of is Joe Flacco on those old Ravens teams where they had a really stacked defense.
Yeah.
Didn't have a lot of good receivers, had a guy to hand the ball off to. And I think that's the thing we're going to see from the Rams. And they'll kind of middle around in the NFC West, but his leash is going to be shorter because once they build that stadium, if Goff's not the guy getting it done and the Rams are still down there, tanking in the Coliseum, we'll see another quarterback in 2 or 3 years in LA. Carson, on the other hand, the comparison I've heard a lot is that the Eagles' new head coach, his name I still haven't learned, he was the starting quarterback before Donovan McNabb was there. So he completely understands what it's like for a quarterback to come in through the draft and then become the face of that franchise. And I think he's going to use a lot of that into Carson. I think the Eagles definitely have a lot more weapons. They've traded a lot from the Chip Kelly era, but you still got Jordan Matthews there. You still got a lot of good receivers there, and Carson can have a future. And they talk about how he comes from 5 championships in a row in the BCS,
right?
Whatever that means. But Carson is more pro style. Yeah. I think the biggest guy at quarterback, as we're going down, if we get back to it later, is Paxton Lynch. I think Paxton Lynch was maybe the best quarterback in this draft, and with the Broncos stealing him, Paxton could be the best quarterback out of this draft that we look at. And when you look at these earlier drafts with guys late, you look at Derek Carr going to the Raiders in the second round, Russell Wilson going to the Seahawks in the second round. You look at guys late and you look at guys early, and you look at Goff and Wentz, and while they're the ones stealing the headlines, it's guys like Paxton Lynch and it's guys like Connor Cook that I think we're going to remember later on down the line out of this class.
Yeah, Tom Brady going with the sixth round.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting that, especially with Curtis, what you said. I mean, I actually think Goff has the more upside because I think we've seen more of Goff, and he may not be like that Andrew Luck, out of college, but we at least have a larger sample size. Whereas Wentz, much smaller sample size, smaller program, not as many games under his belt as Goff. And so I think that LA made the right decision in Goff. And I think as far as success, who will have the more success, you got to look at who's got the team around them. That's really what it comes down to. I mean, rarely, the team with the better quarterback will mostly win, but rarely will a quarterback win the game, if that makes sense at all.
Definitely.
I mean, yes, fourth quarter drives, of course, you got to have somebody out there,
right.
But I mean,
someone's got to catch the ball.
You put Tom Brady on the Browns, like they're still the Browns. They're just the Browns with Tom Brady. They win a couple more games, but they're not Super Bowl contenders. Exactly. So I kind of look at the other teams, and I mean, St. Louis, they added their running game is great, and they have had really great defensive lines in the past. I just don't know. I mean, I think even with that team improving, they're still the third best team in that division. Whereas the Eagles, that division is pretty wide open.
Yep.
I mean, is anybody really afraid of Dallas heading into this year?
Nope.
No. I mean,
and the team you're afraid of is Washington. And Washington is like a 9-7 team at best.
Yeah. I mean,
so
I don't think
open.
Kirk Cousins is gonna.
Eagles.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins is not taking anyone to the Super Bowl anytime soon. I mean, Eli Manning's the luckiest Super Bowl winning quarterback of all time, 2-time Super Bowl winning quarterback. But I don't know. I think that Goff will probably have the better career if that's where we're going. And I don't like even doing this, but I'm gonna do it. I guess I didn't really introduce myself for your listeners, but Paul Reindl, the Reindl Report. But I also work in sports radio. This is, these podcasts that I do, these are something that I do for fun, off the air, kind of just work on my game. But I also work for the Mighty 1090 in San Diego on the evening show there. So I hear things from my co-host, or my show host, I should say, and then like some of the guests that we've had on the show. And we had Vinny Bonsignor from the LA Daily News, who knows his football. Like, the guy knows his stuff. He was all over the stadium saga and the relocation. He's a really cool guy. I've met him once, and he's a good guy. He was saying, we had him on the night of the draft and the first round, and he came on about an hour after that pick came down, and he just goes, man, the Rams believe that they have the team. They just needed the quarterback to get them there. And that's where they think they're going with Jared Goff. So we'll see. I mean, it's an exciting story for sure. I mean, new team, new city, and I should say, again, returning to their old city. But I mean, it's a new chapter in that organization, and why not go get the flashy number one quarterback? It's just, you kind of had to do it.
I agree.
Let's move along through the quarterbacks. We might get to Paxton Lynch because I also think that was a really interesting thing, and that kind of ties back into the Chargers because we'll get there. I have some thoughts on John freaking Elway, but Laramie Tunsil, dropping down significantly in the draft, going to Miami. This was a guy the Chargers had a lot of connections to leading up into the draft.
Yep.
We know he had character issues at Ole Miss with Robert Kindici, kind of pointing the finger at him, saying, "No, he was there." He has some character issues. The guy's still a hell of an offensive line. I mean, I've heard all-pro potential. The guy's got some skills. And then somebody want to fill the people in on what happened about, I don't know, 9 or 10 minutes before Roger Goodell came out to start the
it was
draft.
like 15 minutes before. Basically, the wrong video, the last video you would want to go publicly out to all social media went out for Tunsil at the wrong time. It seemed planned, and we don't really know exactly still who
he's
posted
involved.
it.
He's involved in like a lawsuit battle right now with his stepfather and like some family. So you kind of hear rumors about him being logged in onto a social media account, them having access to it, them having access to the video, them putting out right before the draft.
Right.
And
I've heard
it's a slide that might have cost him like $9 million at the most.
Absolutely. I mean, I heard I haven't heard one way or the other who it was, but I've heard the stepfather, and then I've also heard it was it could have been, I should say, a fired financial advisor that was upset. So basically, those listening at home, a video of him ripping a bong with a gas mask on surfaced literally like no more than 10 minutes before the draft started. 4:50, 4:51.
4:47.
4:47.
Specific.
Yep.
This thing goes out.
Checked it.
This guy could be the number 3 overall pick. The number 1 overall pick, really, technically. Not technically, but if you think about it. And this video goes out. He flips the gas mask off. It's him. Now, of course, he didn't tweet it out. He might be dumb. He's not that dumb. Nobody is that dumb. So he didn't tweet it out. Very interesting. You got to take it with a grain of salt because it's Twitter, but I did see several big name reporters, people that I would definitely trust and who I believe are totally credible. I don't remember off the top of my head who they were, but I saw multiple people saying, look, I've talked to team officials and multiple teams passed on him specifically because of that video. Yep. They said, we're not going there.
They said the Ravens removed him from their draft board the minute that video came out, and he was going to be their guy. And going into it, when you think
Tennessee
about
also.
When we woke up that morning, we were hearing Ronnie Stanley was going to get drafted by the Chargers. And who did the Ravens go and draft? Ronnie Stanley.
Right.
Yep.
Because they were like, nah, take Tunsil off of there. Even if this is a thing, we can't take any chances with that. And he just continued to slide. And we saw the Titans trade up. And when you think about the Titans trading up, Tunsil was linked to them at the number 1 pick. So it was like maybe they're going to give him a shot, and they go and draft Conklin out of Michigan State, and you're like, this is real.
Yeah.
This is a real deal.
Yep.
You're like, when is this? And honestly, different circumstances, sure, but it kind of reminded me of 04 and watching Aaron Rodgers. Like, we just, see him in the green room. He's like, damn, another team passed on me. And you're just like, how much longer is this going to go on for?
Or even recently, Lyle Collins last year.
Yeah.
Because he had similar character issues from college, and he slid all the way down, and it looked like a steal of the draft.
I was joking around with somebody here at work saying Roger Goodell is going to come out, with the 13th pick or 14th pick, whatever it was. The Miami Dolphins select Laramie Tunsil, offensive lineman, Ole Miss. It is also announced Laramie Tunsil has been suspended for the first 4 games of the 2016 season. You know what I mean? It's like, who wants to take the risk on that?
Exactly.
I don't know. It was a very bizarre story.
It slid even more because once he was drafted, you were kind of like, okay, maybe the story's going to go away. And on his Instagram, it leaks out that text messages between him and an assistant coach from Ole Miss talking about him getting money. And when Ole Miss is a college under investigation by NCAA sanctions, and they go and ask Laramie Tunsil in his press conference, did you take money at Ole Miss? And he goes, oh, yeah, absolutely, those are true.
Yeah, they asked him in the press conference, after the draft.
And he acted like it was no big deal. And right away, and Usher was like, no more questions.
Yeah.
And so the Miami Dolphins don't care about that. They got to steal an offensive tackle. Laramie Tunsil is past that. But when you talk about an NFL draft player, a fall player, affecting a university, in the SEC no less, it's huge. It's a huge story.
Well, the Miami Dolphins, let's pump the brakes here. They've got high moral standards. I mean, they just went and got Ndamukong Suh last year. Now they got Laramie Tunsil on offense.
And
They've got high moral standards,
when you're a rookie and you got things going on, and your OTAs are going to be Ndamukong Suh and Cameron Wake coming at you, like, welcome to the NFL, buddy.
Be ready.
Yes.
Yeah, welcome to the NFL.
Be
Yeah.
ready.
Exactly. All right. I want to move on. There's one more name, I guess, and I'll go with two more names because I still want to touch on Paxton Lynch, and then we'll dive into the Chargers. Somebody that I really thought there was a couple of teams I'm like, he's going here for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Passed on him again. Kept falling down the draft board. I'm like, damn, the Chargers might have a shot at this guy. Miles Lynch.
Miles Jack.
Miles Lynch.
Miles
Damn.
Jack.
What?
Combining names.
Miles Jack. Paxton Jack. Miles Lynch. Yes. Miles Jack, UCLA. Now, took the year off, rehabbing that gruesome knee injury. Tore the meniscus off his bone or something disgusting like that. Just wanted to train for the draft. This is a guy that a lot of people said could go number one, could fall out of the first round. You didn't know.
Yep.
He was a complete wild card because you're like, who's going to take a chance on this guy? We don't know. But the talent's there. I mean, I would have loved for the Chargers to pick him up in the second round there, early in the second round. I really thought, I even bet my stupid friend Roger $2.50 on Venmo that he was going to go in the first 15 slots. I really thought Oakland at 14. I thought that would have been
We thought that too.
We
had a
ridiculously-
buddy from Oakland, and he was talking about it. And you saw John Ireland from ESPN 710. Like, come on, Mac and Jack.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mac
Mac,
and Jack.
thank you.
We said
If not
we
for
said
just
Mac
the
and Jack.
nickname, if
Yeah.
not just for the
Mac and
names,
Jack.
And
Mac
when
and
we're
Jack.
talking about them going to Vegas, Mac and Jack, Blackjack.
Jack.
Let's go.
Right,
Come
Mac
on
and Jack,
now.
Blackjack.
Right to
I'm in.
self.
That's a
Right to
5-hour
self.
drive. I am in. I would
Mac and
love to
Jack.
do that. But seriously though,
But
Khalil
he
Mack and
fell.
Miles Jack
Oh.
on that team would be it'd be disgusting.
It would be.
And the things that Jack could do. Like, if the Chargers had drafted Jack, we would have had him at safety.
Yeah, they
He's-
talked about him playing.
He's at 245
secondary.
right now. He would have dropped down to 225. He would have got lean. He would have been fast. He even joked. He was like, I could play running back for them because I played running back at UCLA.
Yeah,
Yep, freshman year.
Jack is such an athlete.
Killed it.
And I think the craziest thing is when he slides all the way down, the Chargers pass on him a second round. You're like, what's going to happen right now? And the Jaguars trade up. And you go, oh, this is a guy that Jaguars could have drafted at number 5 overall. And they get Miles Jack. But the Jaguars in their first round drafted
Paired
a guy named
with
Jalen Ramsey.
Jalen Ramsey.
And so we looked at Chargers fans that were saying, well, the Chargers have Joey Bosa and Hunter Henry. How is that going to translate with Jalen Ramsey and Miles Jack, guys that we passed on, guys that we had talked about forever? Could you imagine a Chargers defense where you had Jason Verrett, Casey Hayward at corner, and then Miles Jack at strong safety? Miles Jack would be free safety. Jalen Ramsey would be strong safety. Wow.
Depth.
Wow.
Eric who?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
right?
Like it's
For
just,
the next 12 years, that could have been our secondary.
Yes.
And we're going to continue to go back to it because the Jaguars could run away with the AFC South.
Oh, absolutely. That's
Man.
the most. Got to be the most
I mean,
wide open division.
You talk about how they went and got Malik Jackson.
They were aggressive.
They've built up an O line. They've got Blake Bortles and the Allens over there.
Who's not bad. I mean,
Yeah.
Blake, he's maybe a glorified game manager, but
He threw for 4,000
he will
yards
get
last
it
you.
year.
done.
He can win you some ball
Yeah.
games.
He
got it done.
He won me a fantasy football championship. Like, you know.
Yeah.
But-
Teenage Mutant Ninja Bortles. Them fantasy teams. Get hype.
Yes. No, I mean, God, that draft, let's be honest, it was the Jaguars draft. We were all lucky enough to be a part of it.
Yeah.
They
Yep.
dominated this
Yeah.
draft.
The Jaguars were prom king, and we witnessed it.
Right.
Yeah.
I think
we saw
Tennessee
it
also, I mean, look, they traded down. They were
Yeah.
able to still get their guy. Like, I don't know. Did anybody
11-something
watch,
draft picks,
Yeah.
and they got studs.
anybody watch that stupid draft day movie with Kevin Costner?
Yeah.
I
The
felt like that.
Yeah.
Where, like, you know, the manipulation.
The Browns and
and-
Titans doing the
everything,
exact
yeah.
same thing.
Yes.
The Titans go and get Derrick Henry. Like, what a steal, pair him with DeMarco Murray. Who would have
Yes.
thunk it?
That'd be great.
Exactly.
And they just made moves. And the Titans reminded me of, like, a Madden player, like, playing his franchise. And he's
Just
like, I
trading.
traded all these players, and I got
Trading.
13 picks. And I traded my 13 picks into 8 picks, and I got 8 studs.
Mm-hmm.
You think about teams that are just rebuilding it. And on the other side, Cleveland Browns with
Racking
12
up
picks in the
picks.
draft, more picks than the 2013, 2014, 2015. And I'm not sure that the Browns did anything to change their team.
Right.
They just,
Maybe Corey Coleman, a wide receiver, but
They're still the
they're
Browns.
just filling
got-
roster spots. At
you
this
got
point.
you got the Titans who did it right and the Browns who did it wrong, and it's just two tails of the tape.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, Johnny Manziel and Gordon.
Yep.
Look at who they're drafting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Josh Gordon. That's why you're the Browns.
Yeah.
When you draft guys like that. And yes, there was some potential. I think Gordon obviously had way more NFL potential than Johnny Football. But when you get your hands on a Johnny Football coming out of college, the career that he had, you got to take the chance. But when those are the kind of guys that you're drafting, I mean,
yeah, I told one of my friends in the 7th round, like we were just like ESPN was just on in the break room, and the Browns drafted a safety named Scooby. Like when you have 13 picks and you're going to the point where you're drafting Scooby-Doo for your defense, like,
right.
Come on now, you got to be doing homework there.
All right, let's talk about Paxton Lynch then.
Oh, man.
I mean,
Paxton.
I just want to talk about the fact that, look, Broncos, AFC West rival, they've just been the kings of the division for however many years now, won the Super Bowl, rode their defense, had Peyton Manning, obviously one of the all-time greats, didn't do anything last year, but he rides off into the sunset, and you think, oh, you got the heir to be, you got, Brock Osweiler here, he could be your next franchise quarterback, signs the big deal, so he's gone. So now you're down 2 quarterbacks. John Elway brings in Mark Sanchez, the butt fumble. He brings in, exactly, I cannot think of anything else when I think of Mark Sanchez.
Butt fumble.
Nope.
I mean, he was tied to Colin Kaepernick. That still could happen. Who knows?
Ryan Fitzpatrick floating out there.
Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Johnny Manziel.
Sam Bradford.
I mean, I'm thinking, what the hell is John Elway doing? So come somewhere in the 20s, mid-20s, I know the Seahawks were at 26, and they end up trading down. I don't remember exactly when the trade took place. The Seahawks, I think, were on the clock.
The
and then they
Seahawks were on the
traded
clock
down.
for 3 minutes, and then the Broncos were on the clock, and it was kind of like, what just happened?
Yeah, so they
Did
make the
Seahawks and Broncos
trade.
trade?
Seahawks moved down, which that's at that point, I grew up in Seattle, if you didn't know, Kendrick, and so I follow the Seahawks loosely now still, and it's not to be they draft for depth in like the 3rd, 4th, 5th rounds.
They drafted the offensive tackle out of Texas A&M, though we all knew they were going to get.
Right. And so they trade down. You're like, okay, whatever. That kind of makes sense. But Denver moving up, like, what are they doing here? They get freaking Paxton Lynch, who totally could be the best quarterback in this draft. I mean, he had high draft stock last year, if I'm not mistaken. And you're just like, damn it, Elway. Like, you always get your way.
Yep.
They might have a franchise quarterback for the next 10 years. And with that defense, everybody thought, oh, they're slipping. They're losing Nope. They very well should. They probably should win the division next year.
And to put it into context, too, an interesting thing to notice is that they had like a big draft party, and who'd they invite to attend? Mark Sanchez. So this big party, they have all the players there. And then, here comes a trade. We're going to pick Paxton Lynch. You're Mark Sanchez. What are you thinking at that point?
Probably
him. Job is on the line.
I'm going to go out and be a starter for this team right now because this rookie's not going to cut it. That's
Right.
what you're thinking right now. And he fits into Brock Osweiler's jersey, too, because he's 6'7".
Yeah, true.
You can wear number 17 very easily.
I bet Sanchez and Sam Bradford were texting each other like, man, this is bull. This Bradford's pissed.
I thought we
Where's
were going to
Johnny?
be together
We're gonna go
again.
hang out.
Right. Hey, Johnny, what's going on right now?
going
I'm at
on?
a Justin Bieber concert, guys.
Oh, my goodness.
Hanging with Gordon.
At the bar. You guys see that picture?
Yeah.
Jeez.
The bar.
Sad stuff.
Did go to a Justin Bieber concert that night, though.
Oh, my
God,
goodness.
It's
Classic.
the spiral.
He's a
Classic
believer.
Reindl.
All right. So, really, the only big name that we haven't talked about yet is going to more lean into the Chargers now. Joey Bosa.
Bosa.
Chargers basically having the first-round pick after the 2 quarterbacks. They're at pick number 3. They've got their choice. They're going to get their guy. Whether it's right or wrong, they're going to get their guy. Tom Telesco is going to get his guy. Now, this is kind of one of those picks where this is your job is riding on this pick. Because, yes, there's all the uncertainty of, the future of the franchise. But as far as the future of the football product, the on-the-field product, this pick is really important to Tom Telesco. He's going to get his guy. Now, Ronnie Stanley had a lot of, really, the day before the draft, it was like, book it. Ronnie Stanley going to San Diego.
Out of nowhere.
And it was like,
Then 12:20 p.m. No, it's not happening. Fox
Right.
Sports, they dug in.
yeah,
It's
because
whoa.
everybody was like, damn, are you serious? Like, if he's your guy, that's, not, I don't agree with it, but, if that's your guy, trade down. You'll get him at, 7 or 8.
Exactly. Yep.
Get another
And
pick.
we talked about the 49ers being in love with Buckner, who was the guy I wanted at 3. You talk
Same.
about the 49ers and Chargers just making a little swap there, and the Chargers picking up a 3rd-round pick, and they
Exactly.
stuck at 3.
Yeah, stuck at 3. So you're thinking, wow. I would have loved to have Ramsey. I think that guy was the best player in the draft. I think he's gonna have a hell of a career. I don't not like the Bosa move. I think he'll be a good defensive lineman. He's getting J.J. Watt comparisons. Let's slow down on that. But I don't know.
We'll see what happens.
Anybody got any thoughts on that? I
Yeah.
mean,
So to put it in context too, earlier on, Joey Bosa
you're all
was
about
mentioned.
context.
I know.
Curtis.
Gosh.
Curtis's context.
Context.
Context, Curtis.
Bosa was mentioned early in the draft months ago, and I think he was forgotten by a lot of Chargers mock picks as they realized he didn't fit our 3-4 system, if you will. He's kind of thrown on the side. And so Buckner was mentioned, Tunzel, Ramsey, and then, of course, day of, we have Stanley mentioned for whatever reason. But me and Kendrick both were on the Buckner. We wanted Buckner. He seemed to fit well. Big guy out of, Pac-12, out of Oregon. And I was shocked with the Bosa pick. I personally liked it. Didn't love it, didn't hate it, but I liked it. And I'm excited to see what he can do. He has quick hands, and he's definitely a run stopper, which the Chargers have struggled with very much so in the past year. So I think he could be potentially great. And Pagano seems to have a plan, so I'm excited for Bosa.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like one of those decisions that won't get Telesco fired. I mean, you couldn't really go wrong, but I think Stanley at 3 might have been wrong.
Definitely.
People were going to riot if that was the pick you made. I mean, you had your choice, but I mean, they wanted Tunsil. Stanley's not even in the conversation if Tunsil isn't Laramie Tunsil. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because talent-wise, I don't even think you can compare the two. Tunsil is clearly going to be the better. Physically, on the field, we don't know how long his career is going to last. We don't know how many games he's going to get suspended and all that. And then, of course, Miles Jack was in there. But I was, Ramsey, I did like Buckner. I hate Oregon, so I couldn't really pull for him. But Buckner, Ramsey, and then Bosa, who a while ago was like, oh, that's who the Chargers really like. And then you heard those rumors kind of fade away. Yep. And then just kind of out of nowhere, you're like, oh. Bosa.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
I think we just kind of forgot about him. Because I
Definitely.
think after those combine numbers came out, and while they were low for a defensive lineman after the studs that were there, I think we forgot about those guys were role players. Like Joey Bosa was truly like one of the stars of that Ohio State defense. And they did their research. Tom Telesco had a 45-minute conversation with Urban Meyer. Just wanted to be like, how do we use this guy? How can we utilize this guy in our defense? And you talk about how at first they were saying he's going to be outside linebacker. That doesn't really fit because you have Jerry Atauchi and you have Melvin Ingram in there. And so plug him in a defensive end, but use him as a rover. I heard a lot of keys saying that when a team had a weak center, they put Joey at defensive tackle and they just let him roll that center the entire game. These are weaknesses that he can do and utilize, and he's going to learn a lot. And I think the thing that I keep telling everyone is I got to see it to believe it. Like, I really think when you talk about a guy that we're comparing to J.J. Watt, it's because J.J. Watt is a true rover. J.J. Watt plays tight end and fullback for the Texans because he's a true rover. Wherever he is, wherever he lines up, he's going to be a beast. And that's a potential that the Chargers can absolutely use. Half of that would be incredible when we have me been there and Corey Legit there. And, you can go look at Bull Banter's YouTube because Curtis and I recorded our reactions to it. And I'm absolutely heated about it in that moment. I'm just the famous line that everyone talks about in the comments is where I go at the end. I'm like, "What have they done?
What have they done?"
So you didn't like it?
I hated it at first.
Hated it.
Hated
I was
it.
shocked
And
he didn't like it.
I've very much cooled off on it. Thinking about it from an X's and O's perspective.
Yeah, so you're
And
warming up to it a little bit.
Yeah. So like, I would give if I graded it, I'd give it a B just because Joey Bosa is a stud. He was a stud in college, and it's one of those things where can he translate it to the pro level? I think Telesco did his homework on him, thinks that he can, thinks that we can utilize him, and now we just go out there and see what happens. On paper, we drafted the number 1 guy in the draft. Scouts Inc. said he had a rating of 99. Like, that's one thing people haven't talked about. On paper, from all these figures that analytics gave us, the Chargers drafted the best player in the draft.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that.
And let's see
There's
how
nothing
it
wrong with that.
happens.
And I think, as far as like, who's a miss and who's a bust, and all that, it's so tough to say like who's going to be a can't miss player, like Joey Bosa. You can't miss. Well, you never know. I mean, the guy hasn't played a snap in the NFL, and we've seen it time and time again where the translation from college to NFL, it is just so much faster. The guys are so much stronger. They're so much bigger. It's just it is a different game. So you never really know how it's going to work out. I mean, I am not going to call Melvin Gordon a bust, but a lot of people were, quick to say that he was a bust. He didn't have a great year, but he also didn't have a whole lot to work with. I mean,
Yep.
I think he's still got a lot of potential. I think if he has another year like last year or another 2 years like last year, then it's time to be like, okay. But, he's been on record saying, like, yeah, the game was it was tough to catch up to it. I mean, he's not saying he can't do it, but I don't know. The last couple years that I've really been following the Chargers more often,
Yeah.
I don't know how any running back could truly succeed, just any one running back in their system. I mean, they're a pass-heavy team with Rivers. Like, why wouldn't you be? But they run, like, they're rotating, like, 4 different guys in the backfield, so it's kind of tough to get one guy going. He's not an every down back. We don't have one, so I think he still could be, but it's just interesting. I mean, we had, everybody said Melvin Gordon was going to be a great running back in the NFL. He didn't really amount to squat last year, so it's just going to be interesting to see how they go through OTAs, preseason,
Definitely.
and then see how he starts adjusting to these offensive linemen in the NFL.
Having Ken Wisenhunt is huge. Kendrick and I talked about it months before the season ended, where you can see a difference in terms of our offense from when Wiz was here in 2013 to where he left. And I think he has a scheme and a plan to fix this whole Gordon issue and run game issue.
If Ryan Matthews could have 1,300 yards and 6 touchdowns behind an offensive line that was not stable, imagine a Chargers offensive line that Telesco believes in, that he built last year, that hasn't been out there at 100%, and then a young Melvin Gordon with Wisenhunt just calling the right plays. Like, you talk about what was the Chargers offense last year? A lot of the plays, Phillip was making those calls. And he kind of just went over to Frank Reich, and he went over to McCoy, and he was like, hey, what are we going to do here? And they were all just kind of like, let's do this. Let's see what happens. And Wisenhunt's a guy, he'll have a game plan day one, a great offensive coordinator. A lot of people will forget that. He went to the Super Bowl, took the Cardinals to the Super Bowl against the Steelers and almost won it.
Sure.
He's a Super Bowl caliber coach, and I think he's going to do a lot for the offense.
Rivers was just like, give me the damn clipboard. I got this. Like, I know what I'm doing.
Where's Charlie Whitehurst with that clipboard?
Yes, clipboard Jesus.
Jesus.
Okay, so I mean, anybody got any last thoughts on Bosa? I mean, I think we kind of hit it.
I think we covered it all.
Covered it all, yeah.
So good, not great pick,
Yeah.
or great pick. I mean,
think-
you seemed like
On-
you
on-
said you were pissed, and then all of a sudden that ends with we have the number 99. We got the number
Exactly,
1 player
right?
in the
It's
draft, so-
very easy to spin it, and it's very easy to take it around, and that's why I just feel like I'm spinning a basketball on my finger, like with the opinions. Like, the words I keep saying are see it to believe it, because I gotta see it on the field, and I gotta see that the kid did his homework. So that's what we're looking at.
We'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, I thought it was a good pick, and the more I've watched and just looked at his highlights more, I get more excited to see what could happen.
Yeah.
We'll see.
So that kind of wraps up the first round. I mean, did we miss any Eli Apple going to the Giants?
The Big Apple.
The Big Apple. Eli squared. No, I mean, there's really not a whole lot else to talk about from the first round. So I'm going to kind of let you guys take over. I mean, I feel like I've been doing a lot of the talking. Like, how do you guys want to do this? I mean, I just go pick by pick. I mean,
Sure.
I'm not going to have a whole lot to say on,
Well, it'll be interesting to hear your analysis then as we get
picks.
later on, because
Yes.
a lot of these guys are steals, and if you look at NFL.com right now, the Chargers draft picks spike as it's going up. B+ for Joey Bosa, A for day 2,
Increases.
A+ for day 3. Tom Telesco did his homework overall in this draft.
Totally. Well, let's start with number 2.
Yeah, number 2. All right, so 35 pick overall, Hunter Henry, tight end out of Arkansas. Basically, the number 1 tight end in the draft.
Right. Huge need.
Yeah, he didn't drop a ball once last year.
167 for 167.
That's disgusting.
And he's quick. I've seen his high school videos, highlights, and college. He runs routes quickly, efficiently, and he holds on that ball. Magical catches.
The guy that everyone talks about that I see in him is Jason Witten.
Jason Witten.
Jason
yep.
Witten has been such a stud for Tony Romo.
Seen Greg Olsen, too.
His blanket. Yeah, and you think about those two guys and what he can do.
Those are pretty good names.
The strength that those guys don't have that Hunter Henry brings to the table is in run blocking.
Yeah.
We picked up Jeff Cumberland to be a run blocker. Hunter Henry is a receiver and a run blocker. And to shadow Antonio Gates, one of the great tight ends to ever play this game, maybe behind Tony Gonzalez, arguably above Tony Gonzalez, maybe later on. And it's just because Gates hasn't been there in the postseason. Gates hasn't been there to contend for a Super Bowl. And Hunter Henry is going to learn so much from him. And in a year where we lose Ladarius Green, to get the number 1 tight end in the draft.
Huge.
It's another one of those surprises where it's like, oh, Yeah, like why didn't we think about him in mocks? Absolutely.
No, totally. I mean, losing Green was big because look, this has got to be Gates' last year, right? I mean, maybe 2 more years,
Yeah, he could
but
maybe go
you're not
2.
going to get 2 great years out of him. You might get a 1 okay year, and then you're going to get his last year.
Yeah.
So I think you hit the nail on the head to have a guy, the number 1 tight end. I mean, that, it may not have been a need this year, but it still was a need because you are going to need somebody to learn the system. Who better to learn from than Phillip Rivers and Antonio Gates?
Antonio Gates,
So
legend.
you shadow Gates for a year, and then he'll be the guy. I mean, God, you pair him up with some of those receivers that we have now. It's gonna be a pretty awesome passing game. I just wish Rivers was like 5 years younger to enjoy these guys, but it'll be interesting to see. But I mean, they definitely hit on a need. I wanted Miles Jack at that spot,
Yeah,
but
it's
when I saw
tempting.
Henry, I'm like, okay, I see where they're going there, and I'm okay with that. I'm more than okay with that.
Yeah, it seems passing on Jack, Telesco really stayed focused on filling needs and not getting too tempted by people that are available.
Right.
which
I
is
mean, early
important.
in the second round, you can still get some quality
Yeah.
players, so you don't have to think. It's you can wait till later in the draft. You're like, all right, best athlete, best available, whoever is the best number 1 up there. That's who we'll take. Early second round, 35th overall. I mean, you can still attack your draft board, pick out your needs. It's still early enough to do that.
And their draft reads like a fantasy football Excel spreadsheet where you have your favorites highlighted, and it's like Telesco got all of his favorites.
Oh, yeah.
He got
did.
all the guys that he did his homework on. And when you're moving into the third round now, center Max Turk out of USC, a guy who, right when the pick happened, the first thing we hear is this guy's recovering from an ACL injury. So it's like, why'd you take him? And as you get farther into interviews, hearing more from him in his recovery, he might be 100% at the earliest by July. He might be 80% through his recovery right now. And Max Turk is huge. Max Turk is massive. I heard someone tell me that you guys drafted a center that looks like a starting tight end in the NFL. And to me, that's like, oh, hey, like this guy's going to be massive. And a lot of people talked about my center that I wanted was Ryan Kelly, and the Colts stole him in the first round. And Max Turk was right around there in the top 3 of centers, as it was talked about. And he was overlooked because of the ACL injury. So I think because the Chargers know that they can treat this guy, he's gonna compete for that starting job. And I think Max will be the starter for the Chargers at center.
Week 1 this year.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised. Watt last year seemed to be a big question mark. Center definitely need to be addressed. A lot of fans, vocalize that. The cool thing about Turk too is he started for 3+ years at USC, so he has experience. Starting a huge program, big school, but also he's played 4 of the 5 positions at O-line. He's moved around,
Right.
which is something that Chargers always need. It seems
Gotta
like
have some versatile players out
nowadays
there.
with linemen dropping left and right. So
And last year can't happen again, right?
I hope
they
not.
cannot get bit by the injury bug as bad as they were last year. I mean, that line
That was a
pretty
freak
bad.
of
gone.
nature. That was a freak of nature.
Vikings game, the whole O-line went down. It was insane.
So I mean, I don't know. What do you think he does really for? What do you think he's going to bring to the offensive line of the Chargers? Is he going to be the center? Is he going to be somebody that they kind of rotate around and they're going to stick with
Watt.
Watt? Thank you. You know what I mean? Is Watt going to be on the way out? What's going to happen here? I mean, he's still a rookie coming in. He's still going to have a lot to learn. He's got to get that chemistry with Rivers. I didn't play. I wasn't a franchise quarterback at any point in my life, so I don't know the chemistry between a center and a quarterback. But I imagine there's got to be something there. I mean, what do you guys think about any of that?
I think Watt started at guard, had to be moved to center. Turk has been at center, and that's where he'll be for the Chargers.
I think Turk is a center. I think Watt will be a roving guard in a rotation, just in case anything happens to Orlando Franklin or DJ Fluker. And then I think Trevor Robinson is the true backup center there.
Yeah.
And I think the statement that Telesco makes with Max Turk is he is an O-line that can rove just in case. Just in case. Max Turk can play tackle also. You could have Chris Watt go and play center, and Turk could go over and play right tackle. So you think about that, he's got versatility to him. And it'll be interesting to see how they use him and where those pieces fall into play, just based on how those coaches see his strength.
Right. Oh, man, I had something and I lost it. Never mind.
We can move to the next pick if that
Yeah,
works.
tell me about Josh Perry.
All right, so Ohio State.
The Ohio
the
State
Ohio
The
State
University.
University.
Ohio State, Curtis, get it right.
Sorry, the Ohio State University. Joshua Perry, linebacker. Bosa spoke highly about him. Great leader. He's known to stop the run just like Bosa, and he's coming from the Ohio State championship team, so you got to be stoked on that. He could. It's tough right now because we are dense in young, fresh, and talented linebackers, but he could contribute a lot to this team and could start over certain linebackers depending how things fall later on in this franchise's seasons.
I think that he's the third guy because a lot of people forgot. It kind of got slid under the rug. Donald Butler's not here anymore.
Right.
It's just Denzel Perryman and Manti Te'o. And I think a steal like Josh Perry, I'm kind of like reliving the music with Denzel Perryman's pick last year. When Denzel Perryman got picked, my analysis of it was, he's the third guy behind Donald Butler and Manti Te'o, and he's the starting linebacker of this team.
Right.
And so a guy like Josh Perry,
You never know.
right there behind Manti Te'o and Denzel Perryman, that is a great rotation. And the biggest thing is, look at what that does for Joey Bosa. Like, these guys could be roommates in training camp. These guys could be working together. I think that's the biggest thing is that these two are really going to pick up each other as rookies, and they're really going to lift up this defense.
Right. That's something that doesn't show up on the stats, you know,
True.
like the chemistry that they're going to have day one walking into training camp. You know, I think with like Manti Te'o, he had a pretty decent year when he was on the field. He's still going to play a full 16-game season.
Yeah.
But he was improving, but he's still, he's not playing at the level that he wants to be at and where the Chargers want to be at. Not going to call him a bust. He's contributed, but I think there's still a lot of room for growth there.
Definitely.
But he's also, year 3, he's going to be getting on thin ice here eventually.
Yep.
I think adding some depth there in the third round is going
And
to
you
help.
give a guy like Josh Perry a shot.
Mhm.
If Manti Te'o's foot doesn't hold up, that has plagued him his career.
Right.
Slide Josh
And-
Perry in there, let him and Denzel Perryman see what they can do.
That kind of happened to Butler. You know, he was young, started after a while, and then last year, honestly, tanked.
Yeah.
He didn't have a great year, and letting go of him was a good decision. But you know, if you can't stick around and can't prove yourself, the next guy's there to take your spot. Just how it goes.
So he was the inside linebacker that they took. Then they went back-to-back linebackers. Got a kid out of Akron.
3 hours and 15 minutes, though.
So
what
long.
the page will not show you. They could have watched all of Godfather in the time it took them. And they
Yes.
took 2 linebackers. But
What do we know about him?
We took an outside linebacker, Jatavis Brown, out of Akron. And the word everyone uses about this guy is athletic freak.
Yeah.
Mel Kiper said he is one of the great steals of this draft. And the impact that I like for the Chargers is in special teams play. They're talking about this guy could go out day one and be a stinger on kickoff.
Just start
Think
busting
about
heads.
special teams. When was the last time we had a great guy on special teams? Kasim Osgood,
Kasim.
maybe? And Jatavis Brown is just an athlete. And the crazy thing is, right away, Telesco was like, we're going to go try him out at strong safety. We're going to see what he can do. This guy was the defensive player of the year in the MAC at Akron University. So we drafted an absolute athlete. We're going to go try him out at strong safety, see what he can do there, because outside linebacker is pretty set, but he can slide there. And I think the biggest thing is we took a true special teams guy, but has the potential to play a role on the defense.
What we're hearing from Telesco is that it looks like he's going to safety. He is great at rushing the quarterback. He's quick, and in college he's been known for covering really well. And it's just amazing to see how Telesco, the way he responds to certain picks, it's like he got the picks he planned for, and he has a scheme for them. It's really amazing that it ended up unfolding how it did. You had a guy that played linebacker, and he's talking about safety just from – he's also, I guess, a little more slim or, not as heavy as a linebacker, so they're saying that he has the build of a safety as well to go along with that. So very awesome.
That's why he's like a true speed fox. That's why we talk about that special teams impact. Jatavis Brown is a true speed linebacker, chase after your guy. So it's going to be very interesting to see what they can do with him, like a true project.
I'm excited for it.
So now I want to talk about just the kind of the package, the two of them together. What do you guys grade this? 'Cause, sounds like you guys are pretty high on the picks. Josh Perry and then athletic freak in Brown. Was linebacker a position of need in your guys' eyes heading into the draft, or do you think that was kind of like, hey, they're there, let's take them? I mean, we haven't done this before. We haven't done a crosstalk, so I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think of? I think we all kind of like what we're seeing from Perriman. What about Manti Te'o? Was this a need? And I mean, what do you guys really think of those picks? Not just the picks themselves, but the type of pick they were. The positions that they went with.
Like we were saying, Teo and Perryman are really the two guys there, and behind that was kind of, we'll see. I think linebacker was a need. Perry will definitely be designated as a linebacker. I think the undertone of Brown is that he's a safety. Even though he's listed as a linebacker, Telesco seems to be set on him as a safety. And a lot of people kept asking after the draft, we didn't draft a safety. And you heard about Cravens and obviously Ramsey and Jack being a safety.
Right. So I was going to say, it's like James Brown's like a poor man's Miles Jack.
Exactly.
Or the Raiders are really hyping up Carl Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
They're calling him the hitman right now. Chargers fans were scared of him for 2 days. And a lot of people
badass
talk about we
man.
didn't address safety, but we did. And we kind of did it in secret, which is the most fascinating thing.
In secret, for sure.
All right, let's move on to their next pick, a position that I don't know has ever caused as much waves with a franchise.
It's true.
The punter.
Yeah,
What could a freaking punter, what kind of waves could they cause with a franchise?
It's the old adage, you don't know what it's got till it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Right.
Mike Cyphers, a lot of Charger fans hated on him last season.
They did.
It was a
Saying
rough
he was
season
old, that
for him.
he was getting hit too much. And, Mike Cyphers he looked gassed. We punted so much last season. And
Thanks,
so we drafted Drew Kaiser out of Texas A&M, and I've watched a lot of Texas A&M football. My dad's an Aggie. I've seen them, and when Curtis was like, "Hey, we drafted a punter," I'm like, I know this guy. This guy shattered Shane Leckler's records. Shane Leckler,
And I know who Shane Leckler is.
May be the greatest punter ever in NFL history, ever. The guy who John Gruden says would take footballs from the stands in Denver and punt them into the parking lot.
Yeah.
We drafted a guy who shattered that guy's records. Shattered them. Texas A&M's field position for their defense that they had was a lot of credit to due to Drew Kaiser. I love this guy. I love this guy as a punter. And the great thing that Telesco did, showing why he's a great GM, he called Mike Cyphers right before the pick.
Yes.
And was
I
like, hey,
that.
we have loved you. We have loved everything you've done for our franchise. Thank you. You are the greatest punter in Chargers history. And we're going to draft a new punter, and the future's going to happen. You're going to be released.
Yeah.
And it was so classy.
Yep,
You heard
classic
Philip
move.
Rivers talking about it today, how much he's loved Mike Cyphers and the things he's done for our team. I love him because I never truly paid attention to a punter until Shane Leckler and Mike Cyphers were dueling it out there
Yeah.
for years.
It's not, I don't know. It's tough to say goodbye to a guy that's been
It
there
is.
for so long, but he kind of knew it was coming.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome that they had, the common courtesy, I guess, too. Just say, look, man, we don't want you hearing from anybody else. Here's where we're at. Doesn't really make it hurt any less as fans, but future's bright at that position.
And he was obviously very, very highly ranked. He was the number 1 punter on everyone's board. But I think it's interesting, Telesco shows he had a plan again. He didn't cut Cyphers end of last season. He knew, hey, we're probably going punter in the draft. Let's wait till before and say our goodbyes. But shout out to Cyphers. He really did make a difference kind of under the radar for the Chargers for many years.
Yeah, totally. We've said it several times. Telesco really did his homework.
He
He
did.
had a hell of a draft.
Mm-hmm.
We should talk. There's, I think, a few notes we can make on their next pick, Derek Watt.
Definitely.
Out of
Chris Watt's brother? What? No,
Wait.
J.J. Watt.
Wait, what?
J.J. Watt's
What?
brother. What are
Watt.
we going to do with him? Out of Wisconsin, fullback. I don't think the most significant part about him is that he's a Watt. I think the most significant thing about this pick was that he is so close with Melvin Gordon.
They were
Huge.
roommates as freshmen.
Roommates. The
Huge.
guy that he's going to be leading the charge for.
Mm-hmm.
Pun intended with the charge. You guys will learn if
A
we
little
do this
bit
in
of
the future.
wattage to the charge.
Yeah.
Yes, I am
wattage.
all for good puns like that. I think it's huge.
huge.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I haven't seen a second of film on him. I don't know anything about him. I'm hoping you guys have and you can tell me a little bit about him. But I think just the chemistry and what that is going to bring, I think that's a good pick, right? I saw it now, and I should start with, I saw a lot of hate for that pick on Twitter. Why?
Oh, yeah.
Can I start with something real
Yeah,
quick?
go for it.
Kendrick and I have talked about the end of last year, like, who's our fullback? I don't know. And the moment we drafted a fullback, I was like, dude, we did it. We have a fullback. We drafted a fullback. And he's from Wisconsin. And he played with Gordon. Is Telesco a genius or what? Or
Yeah.
what?
I mean,
Or what?
with what Woodhead did last year in the backfield, like, look, you can almost write off Gordon as a redshirt, rookie coming into this year. He's going to have plenty of fresh tread on the tire. I don't even know how much he's going to play this year, but eventually those are going to be the two featured backs in your backfield. Him, Watt at fullback, Gordon at tailback, and eventually those guys are going to be on the field a lot at the same time. I think there's something to this pick.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I think a lot of the hatred that you talked about was because the only fullback anyone talked about was Glenn Gronkowski, baby Gronk.
Right.
And the Buffalo Bills drafted him, and no one was really talking about a fullback. And when I was reading on Bleacher Report, it just sounded like a blogger who was tired at the NFL draft. He gave them a D. He said, not as good as baby Gronk. Don't know why you drafted a fullback. There's better fullbacks that will go undrafted. Excuse me? Like, did you see the things the Chargers were saying? Melvin Gordon texted him right away. Hey, we're back.
We're back.
We're back. And you want to know the highlights where I've seen him in? I watched a Melvin Gordon highlight video, and I saw his fullback crack down on a linebacker 3 times to get him in open field.
Yeah.
Hello. Come on now. That's the kind of
I
impact
saw him
he
going
can
out for
make.
passes, too, in a lot of the highlights
I
as
like
well.
that.
It's good stuff.
Look,
Got 30 passes for 309 yards last
There
season.
you go.
all the people that were so pissed about that pick, it's like, shut the hell up. Like you really knew a bunch of other guys. This was pick 198, all right? You didn't have anybody on your board. You're like, oh, man, here we go, 6th
They're
round.
trying to find
Time
something to
shine.
complain about because Telesco's, he killed it the whole time. They're like, oh, this one's kind of questionable. Let's complain.
Oh,
And
whatever.
even though it's not really questionable.
Donovan Clark wrapping up the Chargers draft. I mean, anything on that one?
He started for years for Michigan State. I found it hard to find any highlight videos, but if anyone has one, throw it my way.
I think if you watch Connor Cook highlight videos, you see Donovan Clark making a couple saves there for him.
There you
Yeah.
go.
And
Good
that's
point.
where I think he makes impact. 10 games at right guard, 4 games at right tackle. I think that when we talked about Telesco didn't address right tackle, once again, he addressed tackle very secretly. He drafted another guard, and he can play tackle, and let's see where we can place him at.
Totally. I don't know how long you guys usually go. We're approaching an hour, and I think that'd probably be a good time to kind of wrap it up.
For sure.
Let's give them a grade for the draft as a whole. We've kind of talked individual grades for individual picks. As a whole, I mean, the Chargers are getting a lot of praise. Let's just go around, a little round table action here. What's your grade for this draft, 2016 for the Chargers?
I think their draft is a B. I think it's overall. We drafted great guys on paper, but how those guys play in person, you have to see it to believe.
I'm going to go with B+, but you may see that turn into an A- based upon the way that Telesco has certain players in mind for something better.
I like that. I was gonna go B+ as well. We're all kind of right in the same boat because look, as far as potential, they nailed this draft.
Nailed it.
They hit on just about every pick for potential. At the end of the day, that's all we have is potential.
Yeah,
None of these guys has played a single down. They're still getting fitted for their jerseys. They have not played a down in the NFL. You don't really know. And I guess that's kind of a cop-out. You could say that for every pick. So it's like, well, who the hell gets an A then? Well, Jacksonville kind of, if I'm going to grade other teams, Jacksonville gets an A, maybe an A-.
Jacksonville and Tennessee have completely changed their team
Absolutely.
in 3 days.
Yep.
And the Chargers loaded up on potential and they rebuilded. And another team that got an A in the AFC West is the Chiefs. Because the Chiefs very silently loaded up at every position they needed to load up at.
And Denver's probably up there. I don't know. I don't know the rest of their draft, but just Paxton Lynch alone could have made that.
And
huge
the Raiders built up on their little free agency package.
It's gonna be a
they have
tough
there.
division.
Yeah.
Yep.
Really is.
Wild West.
It's crazy to think about how the Chargers had maybe one of their best overall drafts ever in Telesco's regime.
It's still gonna be
and
tight.
the Chiefs and Raiders and Broncos absolutely loaded up, maybe even better than he did.
Yeah. God, it's crazy. It's gonna be exciting. Gonna be fun seeing how the guys start to mesh and getting to work here with OTAs. Training camps right around the corner. So, I mean, we'll kind of wrap it up here one more time. I mean, I'm Paul Reindl. You guys are Bolt Banter, Reindl Report, little crossover. How can my 3 followers get connected with you guys?
Please just check out our YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter at Bolt Banter. We're on Facebook as well, trying to grow the Facebook followers, and we're on SoundCloud, iTunes, and that's really it, guys.
And Snapchat.
Oh, yeah,
Snapchat.
Newly
Wow.
on Snapchat.
Newly
And-
added.
Changing the game.
Yeah.
And very new also, you can find us on patreon.com where you can find out more about how Bolt Banter is looking to expand into editorial work.
Yes.
And you can also find them on Pinterest, if where they put all their
Hey,
charges, arts and crafts.
MySpace too.
No
while we're
judgment.
at it.
Okay.
Yeah, so awesome. Definitely, we'll pump that out. Your guys' listeners, I think you have a lot more followers like on Twitter than I do.
Yeah, so where can they find you?
They can find
Yeah.
me. I don't really look. When I was as KCR, I had a Reindl Report Twitter account. I think it's still out there. I don't use it anymore. I was sick of managing multiple accounts. So I'm just from my personal account, it's the Paular Bear SD. That's PAULARBEAR SD. The Paular Bear SD. And then the ReindlReport.blogspot.com. And I'll put all this. I'm sure you guys will too. We'll put in the info on the website, on YouTube, and whatever else this makes it out to. But REINDL is how you spell my name. So the ReindlReport.blogspot.com. That's where all that's going to get posted. Both of our websites. Guys, I had a ton of fun doing this. It's
so fun.
Successful crosstalk.
Absolutely.
It's like 2
Dude,
radio shows coming together for their first
Time
hour.
flies when you're having fun.
Absolutely. I mean, I mentioned it in the beginning. I could have probably done a little bit better at mentioning it throughout. This was obviously pre-recorded. This was not live, and this was recorded on May 2nd. It's now May 3rd, but it started on May 2nd, Monday, just a couple of days after the 2016 NFL Draft. So that's where our timestamp is. It is now definitely May 3rd. It's well into the 12 o'clock, the midnight hour. So I think we should probably wrap it up and get out of here. But guys, this was awesome.
Yeah,
So
great
fun, dude.
show.
This is
All
great.
right.
This was
Thanks
great.
for listening, everyone. Whether you're from Bolt Banter, whether you're from the Reindl Report, however you found us, I think I can speak for everybody when I say thank you for listening. For Curtis, for Kendrick, I'm Paul Reindl. Thanks for listening in, guys.